but we'll get back to that.
Good evening. I would like to call to order the regular board meeting of CUSD 303 School Board, Monday, December 13th at 7 p.m. Ms. Marsan, would you please call roll?
Yes, Mrs. Bell. Here. Mrs. Fairgrieve. Here. Mr. Kuchert.
Here.
Mr. Lackner.
Here.
Mrs. McCabe.
Here.
Mr. McNally.
Here.
Mrs. Barker.
Here. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this time, I am calling to order the public hearing to adopt the Community Unit School District 303 Aggregate Tax Levy for the year 2021 to order. Is there any public comments specifically on the CUSD 303 Aggregate Tax Levy for the year 2021 only? No excitement on the tax levy? Do members of the Board of Education have questions or comments on the aggregate tax levy of 2021? No. Okay. The public hearing to adopt the aggregate tax levy for the year 2021 is now closed. Dr. Pearson, the superintendent's report, please.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Barker. Tonight, actually, we are going to spend some time recognizing and celebrating some students and some staff members. And I'd like to begin by inviting Micah Wilson to the microphone while Micah is coming up. I would just like to mention that this is not his first appearance at the board. He's actually been here before as a member of the cross-country team from East High School, but tonight he is here by himself because he won at the state level. He won cross-country boy and boys track. And so I'm going to have him talk a little bit about his recognition and award, and his coaches here and his parents, and he's going to introduce them. And so Micah, go ahead.
Yeah, so it was just a huge honor just to be down there and to be here. Thank you for the school board for having me. I just want to take a moment to thank the people beside me here. Boz, he's my coach. throughout the whole season. He's been, and well, really throughout the last 4 years, he's been a really big factor in what happened back in June and then back in November. So just a big thanks to him. Thank you to my parents for always supporting me through it all. And through, well, the past, 18 years almost now. So, and yeah, thank you to my school, Mr. Richter, Mr. Sommerfeld, all the people there, and thanks to them for making it all happen and building the program. And yeah, so I mean, I'm just thankful to the school and to my family and to everyone who got me here today. So
Now, Micah, just tell the board the two events that you won first in. Yeah.
yeah, so I won in the 3 mile in cross country back in November. I ran a 14:11 for 3 miles, and then I ran the 2 miles in 9:11 to win the back in June. So
Right. Now, my notes here say that this is the first individual track state champion in the history of the Saints program. Is that true, Buzz?
In the history of East.
East, yeah. Yeah, at East High School. So congratulations. And then I also know that the city was able to recognize you with a sign
yeah.
as well. So we wanted to be able to honor and recognize you tonight. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Coach, for coming. And hey, Micah. Micah, you forgot to tell us where you wanted to go to school next year. And I think Mom is helping. She's representing. Do you want to show us your sweatshirt there, Mom? Yeah. Yeah. Great. Congratulations again. I also wanted to mention this evening that while we're still talking about East High School, that we actually had 3 students that received Quest Bridge scholarships from East. You may not be familiar with the Quest Bridge program, but it is a program where 45 of the top universities in the country provide scholarships to students who need assistance to potentially attend their schools. They are typically in the top 5 to 10% of their graduating class. As far as I remember in my 12 years in the district, this is the first time that we've had students that have been recognized by this scholarship program. And not only do we have 1, but we actually have 3 this year that have received that scholarship. The scholarship is actually a full 4-year scholarship to these universities. And they're worth over $200,000. So I wanted to mention this evening that these 3 students actually received the scholarship. Melissa Gomez received a scholarship to Denison. George Holm received a scholarship to Yale, and Jasmine Morales received a full scholarship to Princeton. So it's incredibly impressive. And then also, and they're not here this evening, but we hope to have them soon to be able to recognize them. I also wanted to mention that last week, the Morning Rotary Club recognized our own Mr. John Baird, who is our Assistant Superintendent for Operations, with the Paul Harris Award. The Paul Harris Award is something that was created by the Rotary Foundation and really is meant to pay tribute to a community member whose life demonstrates a shared purpose with the objectives of the Rotary. And so they actually invited him to their meeting on Tuesday morning last week. I was able to attend and recognized his service to the greater St. Charles community. And so I wanted to mention that as well. It's a huge honor for Mr. Baird and for our district as well. Congratulations. And with that, Ms. Barker, that completes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Pearson. Okay, we have citizens' comments. Mrs. McCabe, would you go ahead and read our policy?
The school code provides for a public comment period at each board meeting, subject to reasonable constraints. The practice of this board is to limit public comment to 3 minutes per speaker to a total of 30 minutes per meeting. Speakers addressing the board are expected to maintain a reasonable level of civility. Also, personnel matters are sensitive and confidential. Comments regarding individuals should be respectful. Insults and defamatory remarks have no place in this setting. The board will terminate public comment if speakers cannot adhere to these guidelines. Please identify yourself at the beginning of your remarks.
Ann Seckel.
Good evening. I'm Ann Suckle. I am the mother of three District 303 students. I have a few concerns I'd like to address with the board this evening. First of all, I am extremely concerned with the questionable way that the new member of the board was chosen and seated last week. I would like to ask the board attorney how he's interpreting the Prosser rule to allow the measure to pass with 2 abstentions. Based on previous decisions, this seems to be shaky legal ground. Why did 2 members choose to abstain from voting? And why was it so important for the 3 board members voting in favor to seat this particular applicant with such a questionable vote? Secondly, I sincerely hope that the board isn't planning to weaken the COVID precautions currently being used in our schools with the new, more contagious variant spreading until it is known about its severity. We already know that the Delta variant sent significantly more children to the hospital than previous variants. Fortunately, our district has not seen severe pediatric cases to my knowledge. Children in states without mask mandates and more rampant spread have not been so lucky, including some of my friends who are teachers in Florida and Idaho. They've seen many more of their students severely ill. It is the height of irresponsibility to put our children at unnecessary risk because of political posturing and misguided belief in conspiracy theories over the recommendations of medical experts. Our teachers union has signed on to have their voices heard in opposition to the lawsuit against mask mandates. I hope that the board will support our teachers in keeping our students and staff as safe as possible. It has been a challenge to retain teachers through all the upheaval of the pandemic. I'd hate to make it even more difficult to attract talented teachers by failing to follow health recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Max Gordon.
Yeah, good evening. Wanted to talk you through what I consider a real fail on the procedural process of this recognition, the staff recognition payment and resolution. Board is responsible for all expenditures of monies held in the public trust for this item. Missing from this action is a total dollar amount of taxpayer funds requested to vote on, which should have been published 48 hours in advance of the board meeting. Why was there no dollar amount to vote on? Now, at 123, I printed out the agenda item. There was no dollar amount on it. Magically, a dollar amount appeared. My question is, that's not the total dollar amount. So my statement is going to be, therefore, item 8G must be tabled for action tonight and referred to the Business Services Committee. That's the procedure. This expenditure is outside of the current SCEA, SCESP, ST, SCTM, IMRF contract for bonus, and therefore not a compensation item to be proposed and dealt with in closed session. This action opens the current labor contracts and must have a resolution stating such from the board and the 4 union entities negotiate and resolve. Therefore, this item must be tabled for action tonight and a resolution to open contract negotiations on this matter is communicated to the union leadership for their participation. In summary, expenditures of monies is performed by the board as a public trust. That trust has been ignored once again. We find ourselves with a news release through a written article regarding recognition payment for the extraordinary efforts as our way of finding out what our board is up to. The superintendent's advisement on the single employee as the single employee of the board is a resounding N/A. Superintendent takes no position. Finance takes no position. Again, N/A. As administration. Some time ago, I talked to you about rigor within the board. This procedurally has been out of whack. It's got to go back to the Business Services Committee. You think I'm a joy killer on the recognition program. That's not it. Procedurally, I think you're out of line on this. It's time to build. One more time that the public is not served by this board. And whoever was the nexus of this idea will remain in the shadows, be protected for once more undermining the public's trust. One more occurrence while our academic scores languish, counter to our 3 gentlemen and 1 lady back there, the 2 gentlemen and 1 lady. One more diversion, one more loss for once vaunted St. Charles schools, now accurately stated as nice schools, just mediocre academic results. Item 8G must be tabled for action tonight and referred to the Business Services Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Ruth Kismanik.
Hi, I'm a parent of a student who graduated from D303. I currently am a substitute at Redland Middle School and both your high schools. And I'm a retired teacher from Naperville 203 High School. I'm here to talk to you about my support of diversity and equity. I was fortunate to be a recipient as a teacher in 203. We began in 2011, 2012 with diversity and equity training. And the goals of it were to promote sensitivity and inclusivity in the areas of religion, race, ethnicity, sexual identity, socioeconomic status. Still today in that district, we are working very hard to continue to make strides, but there have been great improvements. And I understand that this board is looking at what training you're going to do to help the students and staff of D303. Research, unfortunately, confirms that we tend to like those people who are just like us, as we can look around the room and see. Whether it's in socioeconomics or race or religion, diversity does add to the richness of our communities, both in the workplace and in schools. Unfortunately, we have to teach people to be accepting because we do like people that are like us. But as I said, I've been in your school classrooms and those students are willing to learn. And I was here, 3 months ago when you guys were going crazy about the masks. It is not a big deal. The students wear their masks, the teachers wear their masks. It is not a big deal. You say to a student, your mask is coming down a little bit. Oh, I'm sorry. And they pull it right up. We can do the same thing in this district with diversity and equity. We can improve the hiring practices, the staff training, and get our students to be more welcoming and diverse so that they branch out of people that are just like them. So whatever you decide to go with in terms of the consultant, and I heard the explanations that you had a while back in the summer, they all seem like good groups, but it needs to be somebody outside of house to bring in new ideas to this district to help our students and staff grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Olivia Newbill. Olivia Newbill.
Hello, I hope everyone's doing well and has had a good day thus far. I'm a graduate of D303 schools of SCN. I graduated college last year in 2020. So do I technically have any real reason to be here other than to share my thoughts and experiences? No, but I just wanted to speak on behalf of the equity audit and just implore you to make a decision. And listening to what she just said was absolutely perfect. You have to make a decision that might be uncomfortable, that might push you outside the bounds of what you might be used to, but that's necessary because these students that are sitting behind me, they rolled in like tons of them because they care, because they want to know that you all care. And they want to know that you all have opinions about these things and that you want for them to feel seen and heard and valued. So, having informed teachers who know how to approach and serve their students takes stepping outside of your comfort zone and making that decision. And these students deserve to see adults modeling effective and necessary changes being made, even and especially when it's not comfortable. So I just want to, again, just implore you to make a decision and make one quickly because this is important and students deserve to feel valued and heard and loved and understood in the classroom spaces that they're in, not because there happens to be one teacher who looks like them or not because they found a niche group of people who fit what it is that they believe in or what it is that they follow in life, but because you all want them to have an equal and just opportunity to be in school and just feel valued. So I just wanted to share that with you all. I appreciate you for doing the difficult jobs you're doing. And I challenge you to take it a step further and be the first person to make the difficult decision and to advocate for it. So thank you.
Thank you. TJ Penix. Yes, TJ.
Hello, my name is TJ Pinex. Some of you may know me, some of you may not. I'm a senior at SEN and I'm one of the founding members of Project Peace. And I'm here tonight to encourage you to move forward with the equity audit. There is no harm in the district exploring an equity audit. The feedback can help put us on a curve to change lives of many students in the community and down the road, and will show us areas where D303 can continue to become an even better school district. The feedback can only make our community, our schools, and our district stronger. Please follow through with your promise and your stated board goal of conducting an equity audit during 2021-2022 school year. Thank you for your time this evening and for responding to my communications to the board.
Thank you. Vincent He.
Hello. Hello, my name is Vincent and I am currently a senior at St. Charles North. I'm a member of the Stuco Council as well as a PLA within peer leadership, meaning I have my own group of students consisting of upper and underclassmen that I lead throughout the year. I'm also a PE leader and assist my teacher in leading a group of students in PE, and I have a lot of respect for my teachers. They know what to do in most situations where I probably would have thrown a fit a long time ago, and are some of the most caring and kind people that I have the honor of knowing in this town. It is safe to say that they are highly qualified, but they are still adequately prepared to deal with many problems that arise within schools. Not because they are inadequate as human beings, but because they are not provided the adequate tools and training to deal with these kinds of issues. In school, I am proud to say that we have a growing community of students in minority and LGBTQIA groups who are feeling more comfortable to step outside their shells and join the community as active members. As such, it is the teacher's job to safeguard equal participation and conversation at school to ensure that there is equality in classrooms. Unfortunately, sometimes it is hard for teachers to talk with and understand students, leaving awkward situations to commonly arise and for kids to go back to hiding in their shells. I've seen this with many of my own classmates as well as myself on many occasions, most of which were in the presence of well-meaning teachers who had no idea what to do. I could go well into the night describing these situations, but I would instead like to urge you, the members of the school board, to please support the start of this audit in order to get the ball rolling on an equality program that supports our teachers and our students. I love our teachers. Please support them and allow them to continue to be the passionate people I have known them to be in educating my classmates and me. Thank you.
Thank you. Sophie Barata.
I'm Sophie Barata, and I am a senior at St. Charles North High School. My friend Marissa and I wanted to share some thoughts on behalf of members of the student body about the equity audit. I've been in the D303 school district since kindergarten, and reflecting back on my time as I'm about to graduate from the district, I have realized just how much I and many of my classmates would have benefited from an equity program. But in order to begin this, we need to start with an audit. I strongly believe that if our teachers had this research, that it could be a new tool to use and could positively impact so many students' school experiences. Now, there's really no point in dwelling on the past and everything that could have been better, but you all have the opportunity right now to put students first. Giving teachers the opportunity with an audit towards an equity program will give teachers the knowledge and experiences they need to be able to understand their students and make them feel comfortable and seen in the classroom. After taking in all the comments I've heard from past school board meetings, it's really hard for me to see a scenario in which an equity audit is harmful. It is simply shedding light on the inequities within our school district, whether that be students who are of different races and ethnicities, students who are neurodivergent or have IEPs, those with challenging socioeconomic situations, or those who do not have English as a first language. We need to take strides to ensure that students all receive a positive school experience, and I believe that we can start this process with an equity audit. Just last Friday at our Project Peace meeting regarding the LGBTQIA+ community, a couple of teachers sat in to listen, and one explained how they accidentally misgendered a student in their classroom and was really unsure if they had handled the situation in the right way. Now, this teacher is just one out of many faculty members that feel they would benefit from an equity program because all they want is to be able to support their students in the best way possible. Project Peace in itself was created because the students of St. Charles North felt that among classmates, there has been a constant inequity that isn't going away. This student-led club is a great start within the walls of SCN, but we as students are simply not enough to fully change how inequity is handled in our community. And that is where you come in. We need adults in the district to help us down a path to equality and new knowledge of things unknown. It is crucial that we work together in order to educate and provide for every student in the most equitable way possible. So this is me asking all of you to please take the first step in moving forward with the equity audit to give educators the tools they need to have positive relationships with their students and to support their students.
Thank you. Zach? Zach Kurchenko?
Hi, everybody. Zach Kluchenko here. I have 3 students in the district spread across several schools. I'm here to speak about item 8G. Mr. Gordon already did a great job, so I'm going to try and just differentiate some of the additional facts that I think are important for you all to consider. As you noted, there was no public notice of this discussion. It took place in closed session under the exemption for negotiation. However, there is no appearance of any negotiation with another party. The document, the resolution that's been put forth for item 8G today simply has signature by the president. There is no second party here, so I'm not sure how a negotiation would have taken place under these circumstances. And I'm concerned, I don't believe every discussion with the union should be exempt or privileged under OMA. So that's a concerning fact as well. Teacher compensation further is very well defined in the contract. And if the board has negotiated that agreement, what else have you opened this up for? That's concerning as well. So if there was in fact a negotiation, I know we're heading into a full teacher contract negotiation next year, but if we've done that prematurely, that's concerning from a negotiation perspective as well. Recently here, I was actually notified that only 4 of the 6 board members were party to this conversation, barely a quorum, right? We were only operating with 6 for a majority of the time that I understand these discussions took place. 2 of the members, I believe, had to exempt themselves because of conflict of interest. That means we only had 4. I spoke with 2 of those 4 board members over the weekend. One of them was unsure what the total cost of this expense would be. The other one grossly misjudged what that expense would be until we spoke later today. As Mr. Gordon mentioned, no dollar amount was initially included. That changed prior to the meeting today. And I'm concerned now, is there now a 48-hour notification period that needs to be put in place? That attachment was assigned with the agenda item. That agenda item is changed. And so I think it would be proper to take that off the agenda, place it back on at the next board meeting. And by the way, this is in no way a judgment of the merit of what you all have proposed. It's simply a process issue. You're not following the right process and procedures. You're not operating transparently. And that's what's concerning to me as a citizen. Let's see here. Yeah, regardless of the outcome of the vote today, I do intend to contact PAC and the Attorney General to speak with them about the process that was followed here. I'm very concerned about it. And as a result of that, I hope you consider that perspective as you guys determine how to move forward with that agenda item today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, that would be the end of citizens' comments, and that brings us to committee reports. Let's start with learning and teaching, Mr. McNally and Mrs. McCabe.
Okay, learning and teaching met on November 15th. And we started with the superintendent's update regarding the St. Charles Education Foundation accepting grants to fund innovative projects and pilot programs that have potential for expansion, adoption, and application throughout the district. The deadline to apply is January 21st, 2022. So fortunately that this is one of those things where I'm not telling you something that already happened. It is still ongoing. Staff interested in receiving a grant should apply via the Ed Foundation website. We had a couple items for discussion. The first was the review of the equity audit proposals. Dr. Igo reviewed the presentations from all of the equity audit providers, including Integrated excuse me, Integrated Comprehensive Systems for Equity, DM Group, Midwest and Plains Equity Center, and the Consortium for Educational Change. Board members inquired about Fair for All, and Dr. Igo indicated she sent an email to Fair for All inquiring about an equity audit, and she had not received a response until that day. So they were not included in the discussion. Board members requested that Dr. Igo reach out again to Fair for All to see if they can provide information about their services and whether they have experience conducting equity audit. She will develop rationale for why the CEC is the preferred provider for the equity audit. Next up was the Student Achievement Report. Dr. Pearson and Dr. Igo presented information on the Student Achievement Report. Dr. Pearson reviewed continuous improvement framework and the work in which the district is engaging to ensure that all students are learning at grade level. Some of the inconsistencies in student achievement data gathered through the 2020-2021 school year were due to decreased instruction time, lack of consistency in instruction, the remote versus in person, and social emotional needs of students. Board members requested follow-up or inquired about adding an additional kindergarten measure other than 40 days, separating the data from students coming out of outside early childhood education programs versus the district's early childhood education program, separating the raw score and super scores on SAT data, communicating to middle school families about the academically talented process. Attendance information should be brought to future L&T meetings, and separating the scores for AP testing for those students that achieved a 3, 4, or 5 on their AP exams. The future agenda items, potential future agenda items are potentially Compass Academy, Empower Phonics, and high school math. We are going to have that meeting next Monday at 5:30 here. And we adjourned our meeting at 7:31 p.m. Once again, I would like to always encourage people to, not just for the learning and teaching, but for all committee meetings, to please go and read the minutes so that you're aware. And you're not waiting to have me read them to you. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McNally. Business Services, Mrs. Fairgrave, Mr. Lechner.
Business Services Committee met on November 29th, and there were some citizen comments associated with academic achievement numbers. Superintendent shared an update that included a discussion of course selections for the upcoming year. And one important thing to mention there was the discussion of early college credit through ECC, which was featured during that discussion on December 1st. Also, there was a discussion about the open house for the Compass Academy, which took place on the 7th of December, and about the parent university on December 9th, which has already taken place to cover the Empower program. Items for discussion in that committee meeting included a review of the Mid-Valley financial statement for October 31st, a review of the D303 financial report, as well as a COVID-19 financial impact summary. Each of those are included in the board packet for tonight's meeting. Also, item D, we included a review from Miller Cooper of the audit of D303's financials, which was prepared without real incident and without real observations of any substantial findings. That too is included in the board packet for tonight. There was a discussion of the public hearing to adopt the aggregate tax levy, which actually took place a little earlier here this evening. And the resolution to adopt that aggregate tax levy is on the agenda for action tonight. Further, there was a discussion led by Mr. Attaway about the budget carryover from 21 and an action item to allow for that budget carryover to take place here on tonight's action item. In addition, we had a review of the strategic planning proposals from various different providers, HYA, the Consortium for Educational Change, and Northern Illinois University. The committee had a discussion about those three proposals and the decision to promote the HYA proposal here for action and consideration tonight. We had a facility master plan update from Mr. Critta from Wold, and a discussion about the space standards for elementary, middle, and high school size classrooms. A report on the individual schools based on these standards will come up at the next committee meeting, which is this Thursday on December 16th. We had a review of the summer capital equipment projects and purchases, as well as the discussion about HVAC equipment and the use of a group purchasing organization in order to secure that equipment for installation here this summer. We had a discussion about the Haynes Center classroom wing improvements, and that included a series of options, including the idea of remediating the asbestos that is present in that wing. We had a discussion about the purchase of buses for the transportation department. Those purchases are on for action in this evening's agenda, as well as the purchase of some Deere commercial mowers for groundskeeping. That item is also on the agenda for tonight's discussion for action, rather. We had a discussion around the data center storage refresh and expansion. This discussion centered on the necessity of upgrading the data storage servers that are used to support the D303 network, and that purchase is also on the agenda tonight. We also had a discussion about the disposal of surplus technology equipment, 3,000 student devices that are surplus, and the request was made for us to be able to sell those if we can find a buyer for them, which I believe we may have. Further, there was a discussion about some additional technology issues that centered on cybersecurity, both the backup as well as endpoint protection. There was no real discussion about future agenda and action items or additional citizens' comments, and the meeting adjourned at 7:28 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Policy did not meet. You did?
We did. It was a very brief meeting. After a long evening, we met to,
that's right.
we
That's
had
right.
3 items on the agenda. We tabled 2 to bring to our next policy meeting, which is January 31st. We had a review of our policy on public participation in school board meetings and determined to bring back a edited version so that the board can look at the possibility of cleaning up the language. So it was, I don't have the time that we left, but it was less than 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you. And then Citizens Advisory, Mrs. McCabe and Mrs. Bell.
We met, the CAC had the executive team meeting and then the meeting with the committee as a whole. Thursday, November 18th, they were 2 different dates. I don't have the executive team notes up in front of me. Let's see, we talked, actually, there were community wonderings this time around where it wasn't last time, so that was great. We always review the norms, so we did that. And the norms are always printed on everyone's name tags, so it makes it easy to review them quickly. We split up into groups, talked about the 2 charges that came to the committee from the board with regards to public comments. And I don't need to read them in complete. I will when we come back with what the collective recommendations were. There was a little confusion with who was going to rewrite them. So that will come to the January board meeting officially with their official recommendations. Let's see. We did also discuss some of the highlights with that the committee recommended that were very common themes were increasing two-way communication with the board, sticking to the policy, and that the policy was confusing, which we talked about at policy, and that will come back to the board in January. The other thing is possibly doing a summit with either students and or CAC members, maybe a video kind of mimicking role play of what public comment looks like once we have the change in policy or updated policy, I should say. Also talking about having topic-based town hall type settings, but maybe not once a month or once a year, maybe somewhere in between that. And with increasing coffees or some sort of meet and greet type settings now that COVID restrictions have eased a little bit. Also, there was a very cool idea about ways we could utilize the DPTO and PTOs as a way to increase info from the community to the community or from the community and then to the board. One of the suggestions that was a very common theme was that the committee recommended there be more informal, authentic two-way communications. Maybe also a way to possibly have specific board members connected to specific schools so that not that they would be attending them on the regularly, but that they would sort of be accessible to a particular school. So it wasn't as overwhelming for 7 different board members with all the different schools in the district. Not that these will all be officially brought to the board as recommendations, but those are some of the common themes. The next meeting is January 13th. We don't have a meeting in December. That's for the CAC exec team, and meeting for the CAC whole will be January 27th. I would highly encourage board members to come to the CAC. I know that all the other board members usually come to all the other committees. It would be really great to have the CAC committee see some of the other board members as well as the board members to experience what we do at the CAC. It's a pretty cool setting. And that's my update. Did I miss anything, Mrs. McCabe?
No? Okay, thank you. Did DPTO meet?
DPTO did meet at the library. We had no speaker at that particular meeting, so there was lots of sharing of events that had happened, and particularly fundraising events, questions about bylaws. Dr. Pearson answered a number of questions that PTO leaders had, and it adjourned on time.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything to report from intergovernmental?
No, this was the meeting that was sponsored by the city this month, and every year at this time, it's basically a holiday breakfast. So there wasn't a lot of agenda items, but it was an opportunity to get together.
Okay. Well, thank you. Okay. That brings us for our discussion item. We have one, and it is the Citizens Advisory Committee charge topics. We had begun talking about this, a couple of months ago, back at the beginning of the year, late August, early September. And we had settled on one topic for them to get started with. So we really need to come to a decision, giving some ideas about topics for the next few months.
So as Mrs. Bell just read from our minutes, we will be presenting to you in January the recommendations that came from the 2 charges that we proposed to the CAC regarding public comment and two-way communication. So you'll get a recommendation at our next meeting. However, we need to begin to outline where we want to go with the CAC for the next few months. We don't have a charge right at the moment, and we don't expect to have tonight to have a specific charge, but we would like to lay out on the table the possibility of some ideas that we think will fit hand in hand with work that we're doing as a board. So any discussion we can have tonight would be helpful, as we have to plan in advance so that our community members have a chance to really do the good work that they've been doing. So what we would like to, Mrs. Bell and I met with Dr. Pearson and Dr. Igo and Mrs. Smith to talk about the possibility of beginning to do the work with the strategic plan and portrait of a student. The equity audit, without a doubt, will be a an important piece that the CAC must be involved in, but we're not quite ready with the proposal to begin that work in January. So what we would like to do is begin to see what the organization that we vote on tonight would, how they would see the CAC fitting into their work. And then as the equity audit begins, how the CAC would fit in to their work, and begin to work with our exec team to meet the board, what the board would really like to have come out of the work the CAC does. I don't know that you have enough information to say this is what we want CAC to actually do with the the 3 large events that are coming. But whatever you have to help us guide our beginning of our work would be helpful. In January, we will be adding our students. We're very excited about that. We have, 9 high school students that will be joining us, and we will be adding 4 middle schoolers. So that work, having their voice be part of this process is going to be a critical piece to the work that the CAC does. So I open it up for any thoughts that you might have as to how you see CAC working with the future.
One of the elements that's in the strategic plan proposal is this concept of the portrait of a graduate. Given that the CAC is primarily a group of community members, the idea of creating some definition of what a graduate might look like in terms of that graduate's qualifications and the experiences that that graduate might have had here at D303 strikes me as a valuable exercise for CAC, and is highly likely to be contributory to the strategic planning process.
My only question or item I would ask for consideration, and you probably don't know the answer yet because you haven't spoken to whoever our partner will be in terms of defining the role, but I would hope, especially related to the strategic plan, that we would have opportunities to canvass more of our community for input and not limited to just the CAC.
Do you see a possibility of the CAC helping us to determine how we do that work? Not just the logistics, but also the depth, working along with the organization to be sure that that they've done a lot of work on what we need to be doing with two-way. And I think they are primed to tell us a lot of ways that we could really gather a lot of information from our community. So with Mr. Lackner looking maybe at what they specifically have, but also how to gather more, would that fit into is that fit into what you were thinking?
I think so. I think so, in conjunction with our strategic plan partners input as far as either what they've seen work or, how we would get the maximum and richest feedback from the community. And then my other question, could you talk a little bit about how the high school and middle school students were identified and what the mixture is in terms of high schools and all that?
Mrs. Smith, would you mind coming and speaking about that really quickly? Thank you.
We asked the high schools and Cusd Academy to identify some students who may be interested in serving. Students who are not necessarily serving on the superintendent's leadership council, but showed some interest in serving in a leadership position. Those we have 9 students that have applied for the position. They completed a Google spreadsheet. And I have that information, and Mrs. Bell and Mrs. McCabe are going to be meeting with those students before the next meeting, before the executive team meeting in January.
We have not, I just found out today about the 4 students from the middle schools but I really feel like we need to have a process to let the parents of the middle school students know exactly what that means. So I'm meeting later this week with both Mr. Morrill and Mr. Laversky to talk about a way that we can create some information to let parents know exactly what that would look like for their middle school student to come and have those kind of conversations in a group of adults.
If I can ask just a quick question on that, because that was one of the questions I had was how students were chosen. Was this kind of an open process, kind of if anyone's interested, let your teachers know, or were teachers asked to kind of say, who do you think would work?
I
in this role?
actually asked both Mrs. Dandre and Mrs. Roberts from the high schools to identify some students who were interested in some leadership roles, and they provided me the names of the students. So, and I'm sorry, I don't have the information about how wide of a net they cast for that. But we did tell them a number that we wanted, around 7, and they gave me 9 names.
Are there any other questions about the process of choosing the students? No? Thank you. Any other thoughts or questions about the CAC topic?
So we'll move forward with the idea of partnering with the strategic plan organizers and the portrait, and we'll bring back to you at a later date. I don't know when that might be because our exec team meets not before, I don't believe we meet. Yeah, I think our board meeting is before the exec team meets. So we won't have a specific charge as we have had in the past to start our work. So that may be something that we'll come back to later with you it's nice to have the specificity because we know then what the board is looking for instead of spending many hours doing work and then come to the board and find out that's not specifically what we wanted. So we'll be back in January or fairly soon afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's move on to consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
There's an item I'd like to move from consent.
Okay. Yes. Which item is that?
Item K.
Okay, item K is the disposal of surplus technology equipment. And so do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda except for K, the disposal of surplus technology equipment?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Marsan, would you please call a roll on consent except for item K?
Mrs. Fairgrieve,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mrs. Barker.
Yes. Okay, so let's go back to item K. Do we have a motion to approve item K, disposal of surplus technology equipment?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, do I have discussion on item K?
Item K relates to the disposal of outdated equipment that we can no longer use as a district that's no longer supportable. And in that permission, what I wanted to have a discussion about was to make a recommendation that we explore whether or not there's an opportunity for us to make that equipment available for purchase by members of the community if there is equipment that is or would be useful to members of the community. And so if that's possible, I'd like to see that as part of the disposal program.
Is that legal?
Is it is that?
I know it's been
possibility or
done in
maybe
other
other-
districts.
Okay, I don't know
Yeah.
if it has to be donated or if there's some.
Okay,
legal
thank you,
reasons.
Mr. Smith, for coming up.
So it is legal. I've seen it done before. I would want to consider some of the management and other possibilities of looking at something like this when I've seen it happen in the past. The selling entity is generally expected to support the item, no matter what is said in the agreement. That comes up many times over the years. And another consideration in this case, if you recall early in remote learning, we had some devices that really weren't performing well for what we were trying to accomplish. And these happen to be those devices. They have an older processor in them. I really believe that they are beyond their value for our students, especially since our students already have a newer device as issued by the district. In the past, well before my time, but after the initial iPad one-to-one program at Richmond, I believe those iPads were sold to the public or given in some fashion for a low price. And we still do occasionally see folks trying to ask us for help with those. And I believe that was from 2012.
Okay, are there any other questions or discussion? So you're not recommending that we maybe. I mean,
Personally, I would not. I don't know that the devices would make anyone very happy because they're not going to be very useful at this point, going on there at minimum of 4 years old at this point. And then additionally, the management side of it would be a challenge for our team.
Okay. And would you just remind the public and the board what it is that was discussed that would happen with surplus technology and the benefit of the plan?
Sure. These devices are from our initial foray into the Chromebook one-to-one program, started in late 2016 and into 2017. We replace approximately a third of our fleet every year, so about 3,300 devices, and these are the devices from that initial outlay. We have vendors looking at whether or not they find them viable for purchase, and the number we're hearing is about $30 a piece potentially, but we won't have that answer back for about a month on whether or not that will happen. Otherwise, they would go towards recycling.
Okay, thank you.
If I can just ask for my own edification, what is it that the vendors then do with these devices?
You know, I find it interesting that anyone wants to go in that direction. We occasionally will look at selling laptops, which are, much more expensive initial outlay. And even those, we don't get much interest after 3 years of extremely hard use. So I'm not quite sure.
I just was
how
wondering,
it's-
are they
how it's
cannibalizing
cost-effective.
for memory or something like that? Or
Right.
is it something that they intend to refurbish, resell?
You know,
or-
there's some value in the screens and things that can be used for other devices. Like if we get a broken screen, that could be $200 per device. I don't know, quite see how 4-year-old screen could be worth much, but they must be able to make a profit off it somehow.
If I could ask a point of clarification as well. Does donating the items tend to make sense to other districts that perhaps may have fewer resources? Does it pose the same problems with the expected support from those items? Is it creating more of a challenge if we were to donate them?
Sure. I think that's a good question. I think in the past, that would be a viable option. But recently, as part of the pandemic response, the federal government has put out some programs to make the acquisition of devices for districts that wouldn't normally have the means much easier. And so we're seeing more and more districts go in that direction, taking use of federal funding and being able to do that with brand new devices.
Great. Thank you.
Any
Mr.
other
Smith-
discussion?
Mr. Smith, thank you for the explanation on the spot. I know we didn't ask you to prepare for that, so I appreciate you jumping into the table and offering such a good response. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Nope. Okay. So, Ms. Marson, would you please call roll on item K?
Mr. Kuschert,
To clarify, this is to remove item K?
No, to
To,
approve
oh,
it.
sorry, to approve it.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave,
Yes.
Mrs. Barker.
Yes. Motion passes. Okay, so that's going to bring us to our 4 action items. And we have several of them. So let's start with the first one. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution to adopt the 2021 aggregate tax levy?
So moved.
Second.
Do we have discussion? Okay, discussion closed. Ms. Marsan, the roll, please.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mrs. Barker.
Yes, motion passes. Do I have a motion to approve the fiscal year 2021 budget carryover?
So moved.
Second.
Do we have discussion? Okay, discussion closed. Ms. Marsan, the roll, please.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mrs. Barker.
Yes. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the summer 2022 capital projects equipment purchases?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I just want to clarify that this is the, what appears to be a rather creative way to make sure that we have equipment available for installation. This is that item we discussed. And I just appreciate the creativity that was used to make sure that we're going to be able to get projects done in an environment where a lot of this stuff is much more difficult to obtain. So the outside of the box thinking that occurred was really what we needed to see. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay. Ms. Marsan, the roll, please.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mrs. Barker.
Yes, motion passes. We have a motion to approve the purchase of buses for transportation department.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion closed. Ms. Marsan, the roll, please.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Barker.
Yes, motion passes. Do I have a motion to approve the purchase of 6 John Deere commercial mowers?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Okay, discussion closed. Ms. Marsan, the roll, please.
Mrs. Fairgrave,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mrs. Barker.
Yes, motion passes. Do I have a motion to approve the data center storage refresh and expansion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Okay, discussion closed. Ms. Marsan, the roll, please.
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave,
Yes.
Mrs. Barker.
Yes, motion passes. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the staff recognition payment resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I do want to begin discussion on this motion. Dr. Pearson, there's been just some discussion in the community about the process by which the resolution came to the board table. Is this something procedurally that should have gone through committee?
No, you actually do have the opportunity to have these discussions in closed session because it is collective negotiating matters and compensation, which are two exceptions under the Open Meetings Act for closed session discussions. And I think the board followed the correct procedure in having those discussions in closed session and then including the associations in a negotiation discussion through the administration about how to handle the distribution of this payment.
As just a follow-up to that, and our legal counsel that consistently represents the district, their role, can you describe their role?
Yes, so Mr. Moore, based on the discussion with the association, drafted the resolution and then it was provided to our legal counsel. They reviewed the resolution and gave approval.
Does this process have opened up the entire contract to further discussion?
No, we can make changes by mutual agreement with the association and that's the procedure that we followed in this case.
Does anyone else have any other discussion? Question?
The only other follow-up question I have is it possible to speak to the specific total cost, including our Medicare, et cetera, payments?
Yeah, I'm going to have Mr. Attaway come in and answer that question.
So the total cost that was included in the resolution that was stated at the bottom was roughly $2 million. That was only inclusive of salary. That did not include the board paid benefits such as Medicare, Social Security, IMRF, the board portion of TRS. That total did not include that. Those items totaled roughly $162,000. So the total cost of the bonus to the district would be roughly $2.16 million.
And as I recall, that was shared with the board. Okay, any other thoughts on this matter? No? Okay, discussion closed. Ms. Marsan, the roll, please.
Mr. Lackner,
Abstain.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally,
Abstain.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mrs. Barker.
Yes. Before we move on to the next item, I just want to mention that two board members have abstained because they do have spouses that are employed with the district. So the next item is strategic planning proposal. Do I have a motion to approve the strategic planning proposal?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion? I think the only thing I want to say is that I believe that the district will benefit from completing this entire process, even though there is we're putting finances toward this. It really is something I think will benefit from. How long has it been since this whole process has been done?
We have not done strategic planning in the districts in my tenure here. That's 12 years. We have done some of the summit opportunities, but the only summits that I was a part of were focused around specific topics. So we did one about elementary, middle, and high school experience, and we've not done a comprehensive strategic plan.
Okay, well, then I definitely think we'll benefit from this. Any other discussion? No? Okay, Ms. Marsan, the roll, please.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mrs. Barker.
Yes, motion passes. Okay, next item. Do I have a motion to approve the equity audit?
So move.
Second.
Is there discussion? Okay, discussion closed. Ms. Marcy on the roll.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mrs. Barker.
Yes, motion passes. Okay. All right, so let's moving on to for information. We have 6 reports for information tonight. I would like to call to your attention. They are the CUSD October 31st financial report, the Mid Valley October 31st financial statement, the June 30th audit, the Freedom of Information Act requests, district enrollment, COVID-19 financial impact summary. We have no new business listed. Does anyone have anything they would like to add under new business? Okay, that doesn't, looks like no one has any new business to add, so we'll move on to citizens' comments at the end. Do we have any citizens' comments? Sorry, we got there fast, Mrs. Smith. Okay, no citizens' comments. Then that brings us to closed session. Do I have a motion to adjourn to closed session for the purposes of appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or specific volunteers of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or a volunteer of the public body, or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. Collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees, and student disciplinary cases. So do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Okay, great. Ms. Marcy on the roll, please.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Barker.
Yes, motion passes. The CUSD 303 board adjourns to closed session on December 13th at 8:10.
Hopefully it works.
You ready? Yes?
I'm waiting for the thumbs up. Yes, okay.
We are back in open session. It is December 13th, 2021, and the time is 9:50. Ms. Marsan, would you please call roll?
Mrs. Fairgrave,
Here.
Mr. Kuschert,
Here.
Mr. Lackner,
Here.
Mrs. McCabe,
Here.
Mr. McNally,
Here.
Mrs. Bell,
Here.
and Mrs. Barker.
Here. We have one for action item. Mr. Moore, would you please read the motion?
The school board of St. Charles School District 303 reviewed the hearing report of its appointed hearing officer in closed session in the matter of the discipline of student E212202 pursuant to section 10-22.6 of the Illinois School Code. And on the basis of all testimony and evidence presented at the hearing, the board has determined that student E212202 is guilty of gross misconduct as set forth in the hearing officer's report. And the board has further determined that student E212202's out-of-school suspension was justified, and the student should be expelled from St. Charles East High School in District 303. Therefore, the school board has determined that student E212202's suspension is upheld, and the student is expelled for the remainder of the 21-22 school year and the entire 22-23 school year. However, the student's expulsion shall be held in abeyance for so long as the student successfully attends and completes the Safe Schools program or another program selected by the district in lieu of expulsion. Should the student and his or her parents or guardians elect to attend the Safe Schools program, they need to sign the agreement for attendance at the Safe Schools program in the form previously approved by the school board.
So moved.
Second. Ms. Marsan, the roll, please.
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave,
Yes.
Mrs. Barker.
Yes, motion passes. Do I have a motion to adjourn the regular board meeting on December 13th, 2021 at 9:53
So
PM?
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 9:53.
It's a delayed response.